there were a couple of years when I didn't do a full 20%.
Okay. I mean, there's nothing to say that you have to necessarily finish it either. I mean, there's nothing to say that you're contractually bound to, finish measuring and listing all the properties in town. It just means that you might have 60% of the town that has been measured and listed, and the other 20% or 40% maybe hasn't been listed for a number of years.
So part of the problem was that the whole revaluation was done kind of late in the process, and we didn't have a chance to see the results of that analysis and then see if the outcomes, I mean, the intent is equity, but if the outcome is not equitable, then things need to be rethought, is according to RSA. You can't have different proportions for different valued properties.
Right.
And that's what the outcome was, but we couldn't know that until the whole revaluation was done, and we didn't have time to appeal it. And in fact, individual citizens have no recourse to say, all you can say is that my property was overvalued. You can't say, well, that guy over there, how come his $1 million estate has gone down $150,000? I'm not allowed to say that in any legally binding context that requires an answer.
Yeah, you can. You can file an abatement on another property.
But I don't want an abatement on another property.
I know.
I want his property to be correctly valued.
Sure. What's that?
I think you could actually do that in the appeal. You could indicate that you feel that it's unfairly assessed, but not positive of that. But I believe that's the case.
So, yeah, you can file an appeal on your behalf because you feel like your property is incorrect, but also on against another property, which it's a hard thing to do. We don't want, everybody's going to be filing appeals against each other. So, to reiterate, you have the option of doing a full evaluation again. It would be considered, here's the other bonus of doing that, okay? That would start the clock again in 5 years, okay? So it's not like you have to, it's not like you would have a new one due in 2026. So if you get to it, if you find somebody who can do it this year, then it would start your new clock over, and your next clock would be 2027, okay? And just in case Dina's wondering, we also have an assessment review schedule, which is a 5-year schedule. That can be either reset to be on the same schedule, or which is good to do in general, but it doesn't have to be. So if it ended up that your next assessment review was in 2026, and your next reval was, was either this year or next year, and then the next one after that was down the line, it's not the end of the world. But here's the thing. We don't know what the market's going to be doing in 2024 either. So, because I don't have a crystal ball, as you know, as I've already claimed twice, right? It's going to be interesting. I don't think, personally, you're not building a ton of houses, but there's a lot more apartments probably being built down in Lebanon. So probably it's going to affect the market down there more. But Lyme is all about scarcity, right? So, yeah.
So you know me, Mr. Current Use Guy.
Yeah, you're not going to start with current use, right? That's a different topic.
But I am going to ask you one thing, and that is why, if we're paying Todd to assess or appraise the town, and I believe he's doing it in Norfolk now too, aren't you, Todd?
Yes.
Yeah. So his contract is to appraise the property. And we're not doing your studies based on appraised values. We're doing our studies based on the assessed values, and that's why you're throwing out all the current use properties. If you put the current use properties in, but then just use their appraised value rather than their assessed value, can't you do your studies based on that?
Right. So you and I were talking about that, right? Earlier?
So Todd could use the current use sales in his sales analysis if you thought they were good sales. It's just the DRA throws them out for the equalization survey. So there's two different things there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you're...
Well, in a sense,
you're saying
yes.
they never looked at it all? They may very well have been reviewed in his analysis.
Well, that's the confusing part, because when we look at the review of his 2021 assessment, he used current use properties to do that.
He can, and I used to use
But any review that he's doing now, he's throwing out the current use properties. So
well,
it's
it's a different
wait,
thing. The
which way do we
equalization
go?
is the state's review, so that's, they don't allow.
Right.
The assessors can use them.
For the purposes of doing analysis and reporting their analysis, their ratio study can look totally different in their USPAP report. But for the purposes of, Linda's statutory requirement to do a ratio study, she's required to throw out but that should not affect, or doesn't need to affect his decision-making as far as analysis.
It's 40% of properties in Lyme are current use.
Yeah.
And if you think about who has current use, it's the higher end properties.
Yeah,
So-
no, point taken. So we could do a trial ratio study for, again, we need to get the study first before we can do anything for 2022. So that's my takeaway is 2022 it'd be nice if we had that, but we don't.
That
Yep.
we're close. We've answered all the questions that they've asked, so we'll see. I'm sure they'll turn it around soon. Don't you think?
I would think.
Ken? I'm sure Natalie's working away on it.
Yeah, Natalie's probably waiting with bated breath. I think she
Still
called.
there?
Huh?
Still there.
She's still in the
Position.
Yeah.
No.
All right, any other, any other questions, I guess? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No.
Yes, we appreciate it.